Three, two, one. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yogi Bryan Talks. I am excited because we have David G here. David G pretty much got me started on my meditation journey. How are you, David G?
I'm amazing. Thank you for inviting me to hang out with you again.
I love it. I love it. And when I started my meditation journey, I started on Insight Timer, and I was just like, I love this app. I'm gonna, it has a good like daily reminder, and I found you there. And your morning practice was like my morning practice just got me through, just like the early days of meditating because your voice and just your vibe feels so real. So I
Well,
appreciate that.
I'm so honored. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I could meditate with you so frequently. How cool is that, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And let's start. First question here. Tell us
Um,
something that most people don't know about you.
oh, um, I think most people don't know that I'm actually an introvert. I'm actually like a really um, low key, shy. Um, when I'm out and about, being masked up was like one of the greatest gifts in the world because it allowed me to, I'd pull, my hoodie on, pull my mask, put a hat on, so maybe there was just like a sliver of my eyes. Um, but yeah, I like to, I'm a homebody, even though for the past, 15 years, I've been on the road like 200 days a year. So like my journey of sharing meditation with the world is the thing that pushes me beyond my comfort zone because my comfort zone is curled up on the couch with my dog, the mindful Morkie, Peaches the Buddha princess, and
Yes.
and streaming some type of streaming whatever. That's like my bliss mode. Also being at the beach is my bliss mode, but alone, essentially. But yeah, most people think I'm very extroverted because they're hearing me when I'm doing something extroverted. But if you know me, I'm like more like I'm a shy guy.
I totally relate. I thought you'd be an extrovert. I thought you'd be an extrovert. And I get that a lot. People see me at Yogi Bryan memes and all that. And I'm very introverted, very similar to you. I'm just like, I'm very shy.
Yeah.
But yeah, put me on a stage and I'm okay. But yeah, I feel you on that.
How funny is that?
Yeah. What's your, how do you, how do you, like, say when you do go do an event or do like a class, like what's your process of kind of getting back to your flow, back to that introvert like energy? Like is there like a meditation you do or like journaling?
Well, I think this would be helpful for anybody. So for example, this morning, I've pretty much been since about 5 o'clock in the morning because I work a lot with people who are they're in the Middle East and Turkey and so starting at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, is when I have my real morning practice, my sadhana, which has like meditation, gratitude, intention setting, yoga, all that stuff, prayer. Um, and what I have really learned to do is that the moment something ends, um, I'll stop, introduce a very noticeable break in the action, whether that's just 30 seconds because I don't have the time. But for us, I figured, well, I've absorbed a lot of stuff this morning. I've absorbed a lot of energy. Let me just meditate for 10 minutes. And that allows me to, wherever I show up, whatever the thing is, um, at least I'm fully present and I'm not carrying in the energy of the last thing. And, those things were great today. I didn't have any arguments with anyone. I didn't have a little voice in my head telling me I sucked. Although there were a couple of times where I like, ooh, as I'm speaking, I'm like, I could have landed that a little better. Um, but I'm not carrying that into this, and so that allows me, no matter where I am, getting up on a stage. I've probably in the last year and a half done more presentations to thousands of people um, by staring at the green dot on Zoom than I have, in person. But I've started to get out there and teach in a few special areas. But always, even if I'm taking a taxi or an Uber to a session, or even if I'm walking to a session, I was in DC, teaching Metro DC cops last month, and my hotel was about 10 minutes away from this police academy where cops are learning stuff. And so I did like a power walk to the place, and then like right outside the building, I just sat down. There's a little teeny wall that I just sat there and said, let me just like get really freaking still right now, and I'll meditate for 10 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, hello, I'm here, fully present. And so I would recommend that to anyone. I think you should start every meeting at work with at least a minute of silence. We do it when people die at sporting events. We and those people are like, they're drinking and yelling and cheering and doing all that stuff. And yet when they say, okay, a moment of silence for the fallen, or a moment of silence for whatever, everyone gets like really, really still. So what would be abnormal about doing that to start any business meeting, or any meeting in the corporate space as well? So I think everything should start with a little bit of silence. So I did my little bit of silence before I got on with you.
It's such great advice. Starting meetings with a little bit of silence, not just the sporting events, a little bit of silence. And it doesn't take that much. Like it's not, 30 minutes of silence, just a minute.
All the people who claim they can't meditate, go to some sporting event where there's 60,000 of them, and the announcer says, and now we'll honor blah, blah, blah with a moment of silence. Everyone does it. Even the guy's got a beer in each hand. Everyone does it. Everyone bows their head and closes their eyes. So like everyone, if they didn't know they were being tricked into meditating, everyone would do it.
Totally. And I pictured, before I even said that, I pictured the guy with the 2 beers holding the popcorn. Yeah, he's so quiet, looking around. Yeah.
Right.
So true. So true. And so how did the meditation journey start? Like what happened?
I started meditating. I've been open to a lot of cooked out teachings, for most of my life. When we were really little, my mother would bust out the Ouija board. So we were taught at an early age that, listen to the spirits, listen to the something, something bigger than us is guiding us in some way. She was not religious, but she believed in the Ouija board. So like I sort of had like an openness to that. There are states beyond my traditional states of consciousness that I'm living. And I think I explored that first in college. There was an experimental Asian studies course, which I was like, cool, it's experimental, I'll do that. And we were led by a Zen master, and we had to read all this other stuff, Alan Watts, Suzuki, a lot of really, really out there stuff at the time. But meditation was a part of every single class, and there were 12 of us. We sat in a circle. Our Zen master stood in the corner. We were instructed to raise our hands when we had a thought. In his hand, he carried an 18-inch bamboo stick known as a keisaku. And so when we raised our hands, he would literally walk over to us and hit us on the back with that keisaku. And so, and I was really loving the meditation. It was definitely bringing me calm. You know how much anxiety and panic and stress kids in school, have, especially now. But certainly before, it's always been part of the deal. And hey, anytime you hear a plane going overhead, because I sit outside a lot, this is where I meditate. This is where I always envision, oh my God, they're flying over my head and throwing hearts out of the window. So hearts are like showering us, Brian. You and me are being
That's
showered
awesome.
with hearts. Someone felt we just needed a little more heart. So there it was. Um, so I only lasted in that school a couple of weeks, that school of meditation. I found myself lying to my Zen master. If I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell him. I'm having thoughts, but I'm not going to tell him because I don't want to get hit. So I left that school, got deep into candle gazing, loved that. Got deep into, mantra and tantra and vipassana and mindfulness and chakras and like all that stuff. Some I dabbled in for months. Others, I lived with for years. But as I got more involved in the corporate world, and I got involved in the world of finance, um, pretty much in my early starting my formative years, um, and I realized the deeper I got involved in the corporate world, the less balance I had in my life, and I suddenly realized, oh, I'm not meditating. I used to meditate every morning. I stopped, started taking the train into the World Trade Center like crack of dawn, and I didn't meditate on the train. And I stopped meditating at night, and instead I filled a nice tall glass of scotch and drank that, to numb myself from that knot of torture that I felt inside of me all day long. Yeah, that's a lifestyle we should all aspire to. And suddenly I realized meditation was gone from my life. In the wake of 9/11, I was walking past a row of cardboard boxes that people were living in at the time in Soho, Southern Manhattan. And this I walked past this particular box, and a hand reached out, grabbed my pant leg, pulled me down, and this guy, this channel of God, of light, of something, beamed into these blue crystalline eyes, and he like zoned into me, and he said, "What's going to be on your tombstone?" I refer to those moments in my life as like butterfly moments, where like in
Mm,
that moment, nothing else existed. The traffic didn't exist. No people existed. The sidewalk didn't exist. It was just me and this being. And we interacted for a little bit in a nonverbal way, with him actually like saying things to me, and me, I answered nothing. Just so you know, this is a one-way conversation between me and this divine being. But after that, I staggered away. I couldn't get more than 20 feet. Tears were streaming down my face. My legs were weak. I was hyperventilating. And that interaction impacted me so deeply that when I went home that night and shared this with my wife, she was like, "You need to quit your job. You need to definitely check out this meditation retreat in Oxford, England." And I was like, "Really?" And she said, "Yeah, Deepak Chopra is having this meditation retreat." And I'd never heard of Deepak Chopra. I thought, for some reason, I kept thinking she was referring to Francis Ford Coppola. And I was like, why would Francis Ford Coppola be hosting a meditation retreat in Oxford, England? And but I signed up and I went to it, and I'm fairly obedient. So sort of like blew up that part of my life and went on my eat, pray, love journey without the eating and the love. Went to a week in Oxford meditating every single day for like, at least, 3+ hours every single day. And by like the fourth day, I was like, oh yeah, it's that thing. It's that meditation. It feels so good. And I felt joy for the first time in, I don't know, probably 20 years. Imagine joy had been erased from my heart, erased from my soul for such an extended period of time. But I felt it again. I felt the lightness of being, and then headed off to India. Got my 6-month visa, and in search of the guru, searching high and low to find the answers to everything in life, and meditated every day, bathed in the Ganges, prayed, practiced yoga, went up into the Himalayas to visit His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He wasn't there that day. Traveled to the south of India, just always trying to like find the thing. And I found the thing while laying in a hammock in a cashew forest in Kerala, southern India, where I was reading the Bhagavad Gita that I had read somewhat clinically a whole bunch of times before that. But in that moment, when I read chapter 2, verse 48, where God, Krishna, is speaking to Arjuna, the great warrior, and Arjuna is saying, "How am I supposed to walk through the world? How am I supposed to live my life? How I'm at a crossroads. What am I supposed to do?" And Krishna replies, "Yogastha kuru karmani." Establish yourself, get still, get into the present moment. Kuru karmani, then perform action. And I was like, "Oh, that's it. That's it." And of course, the follow-on line in chapter 2, verse 47. I actually have a Gita right here. I just, I do not get a commission from the Bhagavad Gita commission, just so you know. But chapter 2, verse 47, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, and that would be like our calling, our dharma, our purpose. But you are not entitled to the fruits of action, which essentially means
Mm.
don't do it for the payoff at the end. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities. It's just like, poof, like really? That's just a mind blower right there, because we're co-creating everything. And the last line, so important, because we think like, yeah, I'm just supposed to like sit in a cave and meditate and the world will get better. But the last line of chapter 2, verse 47 says, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So it's essentially saying you got to do duty. You got to show up. You must be an activist of some sort. But guess what? Just knee jerking and yelling, that's not the way. Get still first and then show up and be brilliant. So just like I read that line, chapter 2, verse 48, and just like, that's it. That's how I want to live my life. Living it in yoga sta, that state of the present moment. And so I raced home. Well, you can't really ever race home from India. I raced to the bus stop and waited 18 hours for a bus, and then, took a 20-hour bus ride to Mumbai, and then waited in the airport for 22 hours, and then took a 22-hour flight. So that's racing home. But when I got home, like I had found my peace. I just meditated every single day, all day long, until a bunch of my friends got together for an intervention, like any recovery intervention. And they were like, dude, all you do is sit around and meditate. And I was like, I know. Isn't it amazing? I love it. And they're like, you got to like do something with that. You can't just like sit around and meditate all day. And I was like, well, what would I do? And they said, teach other people to meditate. And I was like, oh, come on. I'm from Queens. We don't care about anyone else's meditation. It's all about my meditation. Why would I teach anyone else to meditate? And they were like, well, forget the altruism part, but how about if you really wanted to take your practice to the next level? Learn to teach it, learn all the mechanics, learn the science, learn everything behind the scenes of it. And I was like, okay, I could do that. And, sort of like the rest is history. Went to that retreat, got hired to be the lead educator of the Chopra Center, ultimately became the dean of Deepak's University, apprenticed under him and Dr. David Simon for a decade, and got the chance to teach meditation every single day. And it wasn't that I suddenly found altruism, but suddenly as I was meditating every day and then teaching it to other people, like a spark inside of me said like, oh my God, there's some cool stuff here. I need to share it. I need to like get that out into the world. I can't keep this bottled up. This stuff is amazing. It's better than anything you could ever eat, drink, snort, inject. It's it. It's the thing. And so I've been on that quest, ever since. Just to share the coolest stuff that I can find about meditation. And sometimes it's the newest scientific research. Sometimes it's like a really cool technique that I either just found out about or that I've cultivated or that I've been working on for a while. And that led me to record, guided meditations. And I've recorded a guided meditation every single week since 2009. Plus a whole bunch of other ones. There are days where I'll record like 10. But I've made a commitment, like every week, let me show up and share something cool that I can do. And I've tried to share them on as many free platforms, as possible out there, as well as, their paid platforms as well. But so that's my mission.
I love that.
That's
Such
why I'm
a
here.
awesome story. Like such an awesome story. And you're just like led, like almost like, your mom's Ouija board, you're just led by the spirit, just,
Yes.
that homeless guy just tugging you and saying what's going to be on your tombstone, and then going searching, going to that retreat and then going to India and then just finding, I love that quote. I remember you saying it when I took your class, I think, Sacred Powers class. Got your book right here. Got to shout
Nice.
it out. Love it.
Thank
Love
you.
it. I remember you saying that in the class, and that always comes back to me. It's like, gotta get still first. Can't be doing, if you're moving all over the place, your mind's all over the place. Like it's tough when you're on the roller coaster trying to be, trying to do anything. And I really love that quote. And then just like where you're at right now. I mean, you're everywhere. I mean, you're on SoundCloud and Insight Time. You have so many meditations, and as a meditation guide myself, when you first started, like how did you like how did you maybe the word, or take feedback from like your meditation students. Like how did you develop your meditations to be where they're at right now?
Well, it's so funny because if you're a meditation guide, that's different than almost any other creator that's out there. So we're creating a certain space, and we're creating a certain flow, and we're hoping people find value in it in some way. And I believe whatever meditation we create and put out there, ultimately it'll find its audience. You don't have to push it or market it or promo it. Um, but if I've done my job at the end of a meditation class, if I've done my job at the end of some type of guided experience, um, if I've crushed it, when I open my eyes, everyone's unconscious. So if I was like on stage performing, I would expect and hope that everyone would be on their feet, standing O, and giving it up for me. But if people are like, their heads are, if their heads are off to the side and their tongue's hanging out of their mouth, I'm like, nailed it. Um, so it's tough to, I had to learn to get that kind of feedback. And, the same thing with podcasts. I did a radio show for Hay House Radio for 8 years. And like, you don't get the feedback. I was talking to like 20,000 people per show, and it's crickets. You have to, so when you crush it, it's like it's nothing. And for those of us who spend a lot of time, in a recording studio or in a booth or in a closet, or like sealed up with a blanket over our head trying to record something, um, you don't get the feedback until someone maybe sends you an email, and says, "Hey, I was going through a tough time. Thank you. That thing saved me, or really um, added, great value um, to my life." So I think, if you're starting out as someone who creates content, start with the big picture. What am I trying to do out there? Am I trying to get people to um, open their hearts more? Am I trying to get people to trust themselves more? Am I trying to get people to awaken, superpowers, or their mutant native energies that are resting inside but are probably dormant? I'm trying to inspire or get people to step into their power and own their impact. What am I really trying to do? And then be gentle with yourself. What's the way that you would, talk to your son? What's the way you would talk to a dear friend? What's the way that you would, like, hey, there's this cool thing. Let me show you how it is. And it's going to be our way, our flavor, our languaging, and our techniques. But I think if we can, be gentle, always remember less is more. We're not trying to
Yeah.
teach a life, 15 life lessons in a 10-minute guided meditation. Sometimes, if you listen to some of my earlier ones, I like run away with it, and suddenly, I'm talking about consciousness and reincarnation and death and heart healing, and I probably should have just like distilled it down to like one. Probably would have been a little more effective. So less is more, and that's inspired me to like, let me go one theme, one teaching, one takeaway, and one practice, and I'm good there. It'll find its audience. Um, and a lot of it, the funny part is, I've recorded what I consider like, this is the greatest meditation I've ever created in my entire life, and then I'm trying to like come up with like, what's the music that I do. What music should I do? And so sometimes I'll create the music, whether, be through flute or keyboard or just vibration or something along those lines, or I've heard something that's really, really cool and see if I could license it. Um, but I have definitely destroyed amazing meditations by me creating the background music that I thought would be like, there's one meditation, I think I have it on Insight Timer, where I was just like I was in a Patanjali yoga kind of mode. And so I figured I would, I'll chant, one of the sutras over and over. And so, in the background of this beautiful meditation on, oneness is the progressive quieting of the fluctuations of the mind, which is Patanjali in the second sutra, yoga chitta vritti nirodha. I could have just put just a, any sound, any noise in the background, but instead I'm in the back, with a heavy reverb on it going, Yoga chitta vritti nirora, yoga chitta, and I didn't put it on a loop. I did it for like 10 minutes consistently. I was so high at the end of that. And I was like, yeah, it's magnificent. And I put it out there and everyone's like, yeah, I loved everything except that weird chanting in in the background. So you have to have fun with it too. I mean, we're not, this isn't, you know, heart surgery. Well, I guess it is heart surgery in a certain sense,
Right.
but it's not meant to be, so serious. It's meant to be loving.
Yeah. And especially those viewers on Inside Timer will give you super honest feedback. I've felt it.
Oh
They'll
yeah,
tell you exactly how it is, and they, in a nice way. They're like,
yeah.
okay.
Although I get some pretty blistering emails, and I get some confused emails because a lot of my meditations, I start off with just a little, background music, and then when I go into the actual meditation, I'll say we're going to go into silence now, and so they think that means silence with continuing the background, but I'll often outro the background music and we'll be silent. And so I'll get emails all the time. I think something's wrong with your day 13 on your course on Insight Timer. Suddenly the music stopped. And I was like, by design. That was intentional. But thank you for your interest. Yeah, I think it's great. I think a platform like Insight Timer. I also, love Unplugged Meditation
Mm.
app. Um, I think they're just amazing because you do get the feedback, and you're talking to meditation communities. So it's the feedback's a little less harsh than like Instagram, where who knows what they're who knows who they are, who knows if they've never meditated in their entire life. But if you're on Insight Timer, pretty much you want it to work. You're looking for a voice that speaks to you, or a process that speaks to you. So really, the comments from meditation communities, I think, really are so much more constructive and loving, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Like they're
it's a
they're trying to help. I feel like they try to help,
yeah.
guide the way a little bit. Like, hey, this is good, but it could have been, this way. But yeah, I love your meditations on there. It's great, and I love your
Thank
classes.
you.
I need to come out and visit the sweet spot. I really do. That's on my
Yeah,
list. I need to come
yeah.
out to Ocean and visit the sweet spot. I'll bring my little guy. He's my meditation. He's like Peaches, but he's actual human.
Right. And so probably, one of your most important meditation teachers of all time, someone who's really living so present moment as this constant reminder.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And so someone just starting meditation, I get the question all the time. And I always refer them back to you, especially like to the yogi show. Someone that's just starting meditation that wants a consistent practice, not just like meditating one day out of the week, but like maybe like a consistent daily practice. What would you tell them? Where would you tell them to go? What would you tell them to do?
Well, there are probably two answers that I would give them. One, I would say, oh, well, you should get on the teacher's path. You should sign up to be a meditation teacher. And then you have the constant reminder and you understand, oh, this is why I need to show up twice a day in the morning and afternoon. Oh, this is why, I sit like this or breathe like this, or this is why I would use this technique or this modality, or mantra versus breath or something in a situation. So that would be like the extreme one. You want to lock down your practice, get on the teacher's path, and then it'll get locked in. Plus, you have community and a little peer support. But I don't believe meditation works like with the same willpower of uh, belonging to a gym, or even when we say to people, "Are you a yogi? Do you practice yoga?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, I practice yoga all the time." It's like, "How many times a week?" And they're like, mm, "Sometimes two, mostly three." And it's like, okay, um, meditation, I take that just a little more expansively. Like, if you're going to meditate, my ideal is every day, twice a day, the bookends of your day. That's a lot to ask of someone who is very busy, has never meditated before, and like is looking to like get the aha moment in like 15 seconds after they close their eyes, which of course, does not happen. That's not part of the deal. But if we can just teach people or guide them to ritualize it in some way and make it, it doesn't have to be a giggle fest, but make it lighthearted as opposed to so serious. If we can see meditation as a gift rather than a chore, will probably higher likelihood. If you give someone permission to, like, yeah, sure, you want to lie down, lie down. You want to sit up like that? Sure. You heard about hand mudras, but you don't know what they are? Don't worry about it. Advanced technique. You don't have to have a rigid spine? Advanced technique. You don't have to be in full lotus, utpluti, advanced technique. So if we can just like get someone to show up and enjoy spending a little bit of time alone with themselves, which is often challenging for all of us. But if we can, figure out cool and fun and interesting and engaging ways to do that, then then it'll stick. Especially if you can ritualize it, because we have all of our morning ablution rituals, washing and peeing and pooping and showering and eating and dressing and drinking and making our, stuff. And suddenly it's like, really? Now I'm going to add into that, 30 minutes. Like, don't make it 30 minutes. Just, wake up, hit your snooze button, slide your tush to the headboard, meditate for 9 minutes and 59 seconds. Your meditation timer will go off. And then you can like leave your bed with a little bit of stillness and silence inside of you. And that second meditation of the day, how about if we start at like 5 minutes and just do a let go meditation? As you breathe in, silently repeat let. As you breathe out, silently repeat go. And just like wash out some of all of that energy that you've absorbed over the course of the day. So for someone who says, I don't have 10 and 5, it's like, okay, then enjoy your suffering life for the rest of your days. You don't have 15 minutes out of 24 hours to just nourish yourself, take care of yourself, a little radical self-care. So we all have that time, and I would suggest always start slow. Just lock it in, and maybe you do that for 6 months, and then maybe you add a minute to each of those for a whole month. Not progressively, just 1 minute, and then the next month you add another minute. If this is a long-term practice, of self-care and nourishment, it's okay if it takes a year to get your sea legs in that. And so I believe we have to be gentle with ourselves. We have to be kind to ourselves. You have to dabble and try different types of techniques because maybe one speaks to you and all those other. If I had stopped meditating because I didn't want to be hit on the back by an 18-inch bamboo stick, that teacher in that school. I've done other Zen meditations where no one got hit. So it was like, if I had just like, here's one of the most important lessons that I've learned over the last 10 years. We've been conditioned to live in sort of like a binary world where it's either black or white. It's either yes or no. It's either full on or not at all. And virtually every single decision that we could ever make, instead of, if we just replaced or with and, that would include everything in between, all those shades of gray. And so it's like, all right, 10 minutes doesn't work, but 8 does. Cool. It's not 10 or nothing. It's okay, 8. And okay, you can't find 5 minutes in the afternoon, but you found 5 minutes around 7 to 7:05 every night. Cool. So find the technique that really speaks to you and resonates with you and allows you to feel good, and find your, find your gear, find your groove with meditation. And then if it sticks over time, and you got to ritualize it in some way. My philosophy is RPM, rise, P, meditate. It's really that first or second thing that I do every single day before anything else starts. And I drink coffee. And I have one of those Nespresso machines. I could bang out 4 pods of espresso by noon. But I'm waking up pretty early as well. But I never would do that before I would meditate. First, I want to, let me infuse every single cell in my body with just a little bit of stillness and silence. Then bring on the day, whatever that is. And I've got to walk a dog, and I've got to practice yoga, and I've got to do my morning hike. And I've got to, there's lots of stuff, that I want to do. But meditation is my setup. Meditation is sort of like, that sets the trajectory for everything. And if I said, oh, I'll do it around 10 o'clock, my day always gets away from me, always. Even trying to find a time on your Calendly to even, connect to this. I went on it like on 3 different occasions, comparing my calendar to your calendar, and I'm like, oh, I'm almost free. Yes, I'm, And then ultimately, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick a time, and I'm just going to clear it out, no matter what, because I want to hang out with Brian. So,
Oh, thank
you
you.
know, the day always can run away from us. So that way, it's like the first flight of the day, right? The first flight of the day, typically always on time, because there's nothing before it that got confused. The flight that happens at like 5 o'clock at night. Oh my God, so many planes that have taken off and landed at that gate, and that plane, maybe there's equipment stuff or weather stuff or whatever. So there's a high likelihood that the second one can be a little sketchier. But that morning one, don't make it a time. Make it part of your morning ablution ritual. And I would say push your meditation to the very front end of all those other things that you're going to do. Then you'll shower just with a little bit of stillness and silence. You'll poop with a little bit of stillness and silence. You'll cook, you'll eat, you'll drink, you'll dress, just with a little more patience, just with a little more flow. And I think it really makes such a big difference if you do all that before you then click on Instagram or social media or the emails or your texts. Then you approach all of those with just a little bit of stillness and silence inside of you as well. So
A little bit of stillness and silence. First thing in the morning. I love it. RPM.
yeah,
RPM.
that's it.
That's great. RPM. Rise,
And that
P,
second,
meditate.
yes, and that second meditation of the day, I've often said it's raw, right after work. It should be the very, 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 very last thing you do before you go home, before you sit down at the table, before you enter back into your family. Let's assume that there is someone else living in your house, even if it's your lizard, okay? Whomever is in that space. And I know it's different, now with COVID a little bit. It's harder because like we turn off Zoom and then we suddenly find ourselves eating, which is a little weird. We should take just a little more time for being mindful between those two. Just introduce a pattern interrupt, just a little
Mm,
bit of break in the action. But that second meditation of the day is so important because we have absorbed energy. We have taken stuff personally. We have gotten sucked into drama. We have perhaps not been so impeccable with our words or our actions. And so imagine if we have even just starting with a 5 minute letting go practice, catharsis practice, releasing practice, to let go of all of that energy that's not going to serve us. Because in the past, we probably held on to that, come back to dinner, and everyone's like, so how was your day? And you're like, you wouldn't believe it. At 10 o'clock this morning, this person said that. And at 9 o'clock, they said that. And at 2 o'clock, no one wants to hear that. If we can actually have a practice that lets go of all of that venting before you come back into your house and vomit all over everyone at your family, at the dinner table, and instead we replace that need to vent with the need to express our love, and someone says, how was your day? And you go, you know what? My day was interesting, but I'm here right now. And I am so happy, and I love you all so much. Imagine that as your response instead of they've been conditioned to listen to you, regurgitate whatever the thing was that blew up the day. So we don't want to necessarily let go of all the good stuff that happens, but there's a whole bunch of non-nourishing stuff and non-nourishing energy that we've
right.
absorbed. You can't live in this world, watch TV or be online and not have absorbed something that just is not nourishing. And so we need to let it go.
Yeah. It's like giving that space and that stillness. Yeah. Even if it's a minute, like you were saying, if you're
Yeah,
like you go on social media and you're just like, okay, I'm going to take a minute off and like just breathe for a second and then go do whatever I need to do in my life.
yeah,
It's
yeah. I
true.
mean,
It's like
it's
giving that
it's a minute.
space.
Here's a cool thing. We can do this now for all of our listeners. I often refer to it as the Crazy Eights meditation. But it's really not even it's technically a meditation, but it's really more of a pattern interrupt. So wherever you are right now listening to this, we're going to breathe in slowly through our nose to the count of 8. We're going to hold it to the count of 8, and we're going to let that go to the count of 8. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or dizzy, just stop and breathe normally. Okay, don't do this while you're like walking a tightrope or sitting on a bar stool. So everyone, take a long, slow, deep breath in through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now hold it. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now release it really slowly to the count of 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now come back. Open your eyes, breathe normally. So we're talking about probably, I don't know, 25 seconds. You know, I'm sure there was like an extra second in there that I missed. It's cathartic. Don't you feel better, Brian? Does
Yeah.
everyone feel
I
better?
feel,
Just
yeah, I feel better. That's a pause. That's like that cushion
right.
from like
So who doesn't
before
have
and
time for
after.
that? Right. So someone who says, you don't understand. I've got kids. You don't understand. I have a job. You don't understand. I'm really busy. Like, really? If you're too busy to do that, you have bigger issues. It's not your busyness. That's your issue.
Yeah, you got 25 seconds. Everybody out there, you got 25 seconds. I'm sure you do.
Right.
Yes. Yes. And thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for that. That's great advice. And what's a practice right now? Like what's a practice that you're currently working on? Like maybe something new or something that came up. What's something that you're working on?
I've been
I know you're
working a lot.
constantly growing.
Yeah, I've been working a lot on heart healing. Um, when I first really started studying the Bhagavad Gita, I really saw it as more of a more clinical kind of read, considering Einstein was reading it every day, and Emerson and Thoreau and Gandhi, and I'm like, well, maybe these are just clinical metaphorical kind of things on how to live your life with greater purpose. And really, over the last, I don't know, maybe 6 years, I have found the bhakti in the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, that's one of the four yogas that's spoken about in the Bhagavad Gita. There's the yoga of action, karma yoga. There's the yoga of studying and reading and intellectualizing, Gyan yoga. Um, there's the yoga of practice, meditation, and actual asana and pranayama and all those. That would be the Raj yoga, the royal path. And then, of course, there's bhakti yoga, which is the yoga of the heart, the yoga of deep devotion. And in the Bhagavad Gita, of course, we're referring to like devotion to God, but of course, that's everything is metaphorical in the Gita. There really is no battle, on the battlefield. The battle is always raging inside of us. Shall I resist my past? Shall I make peace with my past? Shall I resist this person, or shall I embrace them? Shall I resist this limiting belief, or and push through it? What do I do? There's always, there's always some type of little, sort of like steel cage match going on inside of our hearts. So been spending a lot more time on exploring more of the ancient heart-based teachings, specifically, heart salutations and heart healing meditations, and accessing different parts of the heart, spending time, um, with the Anahata chakra, and really, because I believe if we can, just getting still, just meditating, just having that is great. We'll sleep better at night, and maybe we'll be a little more patient, and we'll lower our blood pressure. All those clinical physiological things that are obviously going to happen when we meditate. But I believe that we can really learn and grow and heal so deeply, if we sort of like create some type of integration, of our stillness and silence practice with our opening the heart. Everybody here, if you're listening to my voice, you've had your heart broken. If you're human, you have had your heart broken, and maybe you've broken other people's hearts as well. So there's probably so many sanskaras, so many etchings in our heart, from early childhood, from our teens, from our 20s, from jobs and people, and some of these, horribly abusive and traumatic situations in our lives, and they could use some love. Normally we're just like turning away from them, but Pema Chodron, one of the great, American, um, Buddhist. I think she was the first actually American Buddhist nun. um, her teachings are, she loves meditation. She was telling everyone to meditate, but she also says, you know what? sometimes you just really need to sit with the heart. You just need to sit with your pain. You need to just allow the tears to flow, and the suffering to sort of like ease out, and like sit with your suffering. And ultimately, if we can become more familiar with our demons and our pains, they will have less influence and control over us. So I've really been spending a lot of quiet time with the heart, and using breath and the heart, and using a lot of embodiment practices as well that I've been integrating. There's this a new course that I put on Insight Timer, the healing sessions, freeing your soul through the second meditation of the day. There's a lot of heart, I would say, like, I don't know, it's a 10 lesson or maybe 11 lesson course. Probably 7 of those I designed and with heart healing in mind, because you don't need to carry that stuff around. We don't
Yeah.
need to let it own us. We can actually move through it. We need to learn from it. We need to grow from it. But the past is prep. It's prep for this moment, this exact moment. So we could either be stuck in our victimhood of the past, or we could be right now using all of that as a springboard to launch into our next expression of life.
Yes. I saw that course that you posted and I was like, oh, I love that. I'm definitely going to do it now after
Nice.
speaking about it in terms of the heart. 'Cause I feel like, especially with the pandemic too, like a lot of people are just the heart's heavy right now, and people need it. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna link it up in the description, everybody. Let's go do this.
cool. Thank you.
Let's all work on our hearts. And
Yeah, no
yes.
matter how we think we've thrived, and a lot of people, say like, COVID was so great to me, like any trauma, helped me understand what was really important, helped me understand who's in my front row, helped me on so many levels. COVID was really, really, what a gift. Um, but even in spite of whatever benefits we may have taken away, I think we all, the planet could not have gone through this without being massively traumatized and
Yeah.
re-triggered. And um, so, it's sort of like I refer to this period as low tide. At high tide, when you're floating along, all those sharp edges and ugly and scary spaces, they're all below the surface. They're there, but we don't even see them. We're not even paying attention. So we're like, la, 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 and when it's low tide, all is revealed. When it's low tide, all the rawness is revealed. When you're squeezed into your house with people that you had been escaping for many years, and that was the secret to the success of that relationship, and suddenly it's like now everyone's living in the same bathroom simultaneously, in the same dining room simultaneously. That's like, that's low tide. When suddenly you really can't go out or want to go out, or your yoga studio's closed, or your meditation studio's closed, or the movie theaters are closed, and the restaurants are, not the same. Suddenly we're living in this really extended period of low tide, where all is revealed, all the sharp edges are revealed. So it would make sense that we're raw and tender and a little touchy and a little reactive. And that's why these teachings are so important, to help us soften our heart and help us, we can hold our breath for the next 6 months, which I keep saying every 6 months, or we could learn to breathe. And so this is, if we can learn to breathe, and we can learn to breathe into our hearts and allow our hearts to breathe back out and talk to us and whisper and ask our heart what it truly needs, and listen to those answers in meditation, I think we do end up thriving through this, otherwise horrific time.
Yes. Absolutely. End up thriving through these horrific times. Totally feel that. And so we're getting towards the end of the episode. Is there anything else? Is there any like burning desire that you like to share with anybody out there that we didn't cover yet? Anything that just need to get out there?
Is there anybody out there? Just nod. You can hear us. Um, yeah, we transform the world by transforming ourselves. We just have to keep reminding ourselves that. Sometimes it can feel like, oh my God, I'm having no impact on the world. I can't make anything. I can't change anything. I can't influence anything. And I call BS on that. We transform everything in our lives through transforming ourselves. And we can point fingers at everyone who sucks, and our fingers will be like so heavy. Our arms would be like falling off if we could just like, you suck and you suck and you suck and you suck. Um, or we can like, why do that? And instead point the fingers back at ourselves and say, I am the change agent. I have power within me. Let my voice be heard. Let me undim my light. Let me take a shot. Let me just dip my toe in just a little bit, because even the Bhagavad Gita says, do not be attached to inaction. We have to take the steps. And so, but the Bhagavad Gita also says, get still first. So I would encourage everyone to follow your heart. We're being called in the, Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. The hero's journey always begins with a departure, and then an initiation, and then a return to whatever. But that departure always begins with a calling, and it would make logical sense that you would sense a calling, that you would hear a calling, and historically, for thousands and thousands of years, whenever the hero, and this is a man or a woman, whenever the hero has heard the calling, the second response is to resist the call. Mm. And guess what? We're all going to die. Everyone we know is going to die at some point. So why resist the call? It's okay to second guess. It's okay to not trust. It's okay to, think about it, but, take a deep breath in and give yourself permission to take that baby step, because this is how we shift the planet. It's really by us taking our own internal step first. And I say that starts with the first breath and the next meditation. And so easy to do, and it can be fun. And, why run from it? People like us, I've attached meditation to my name. You've attached yoga to your name. Why? Because these have helped define us. These have
Yes.
these have been these aspects that have like, oh my God, until I found this thing, my life was so unfulfilling and pathetic or whatever. And it was just in this circular thing going over and over. And then I found yoga, or then I found meditation, or then I found, the Yogi Bryan podcast, or then I found, and like, we have to embrace that. It's like, let's do something with that. Let's live it one more day. Let's take advantage of that. So I think there are amazing things yet to be accomplished in our world, and it's not necessarily going to Mars. I applaud all those geniuses, those billionaire geniuses who are like, that's the next step. But like, how about all the million steps before that? How about like just now loving yourself just a little bit more, forgiving yourself for something that you said or did, that you wish, you had been a little more impeccable.
Yes. Yeah, we're taking a minute just to breathe.
Yeah.
Exactly. Baby steps. I love what you said. Baby steps. And that's so good. Everybody needs to rewind that and hear it over and over again. And David G, where can people find you? I'm going to link it all in the description, but where can they find you?
I've written a few books. I've recorded, I think, about 1,300 guided meditations, a few hundred videos. I've got a mind shift community where I've created like a curated meditation vault in there. And each month, we spend a lot of time on specific themes and topics, real world stuff. Spotify, Insight Timer, Unplug, Rocker, Beachbody, Amazon, Apple, Tidal. If you've got some kind of something, I should be able to hook up with you in some way. And if you don't like to read books, I've read all of my books. They're all in audiobook. I don't mean I've read them, but I've read them into a microphone. So you can listen to my reading of them if you care to do that. But, most of the stuff that I offer, really the majority of it is all available, whatever your socioeconomic jam is. So as long as you can get to some, even if it's someone else's device, you can do that. And even if you have no device, you've got 25 seconds to go 888. And you can cultivate that into a practice as well. So I'm always floating around in the gap, that space between. So as long as you enter there, I'll be there with you.
I love that. And you can always say, Alexa, put on some David G, and then watch everybody's Alexas going off right now in their house.
Love that.
and you're coming on. Thank you so much, David G. I really appreciate everything you're doing in the world. I really, you're one of my top teachers that I really go to just in my meditation, yoga practice. And I can't thank you enough for what you're doing. And I really appreciate you coming on here. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I have always been so inspired from the very first, I don't know what it was. There weren't even reels back then. Maybe it was just a story that I saw or a post, but it just came onto my feed, and in that moment, I was like, "Oh my God, a yogi who's the real deal. I love this. Let me, I'm full on follower, fan, stan, like I'm in. So thank you for always keeping it real and for raising the vibration in such an accessible way. Because yoga, meditation, this stuff should be fun. It really should be
Yes.
fun. And, we can actually take ourselves to such beautiful higher planes of existence and have fun in the process. It doesn't have to be, I'm not saying there aren't some, yoga poses where I'm like, I, I can hang on another 15 seconds and that's it. But it should be fun to be able to even like laugh at yourself that you're like whining over like an extra 15 seconds of warrior or plank. I think that was your line,
Yeah,
something about plank, and you're like, your arms were like burning or something. We should be able to like get to that space and go, you know what? Doesn't stop me from showing up, but
exactly.
I get the same benefits whether I have a smile on my face or a grimace on my face. And I would think probably even get better benefits with a smile on your face. I had a yoga teacher who always said, like with every pose, it was at a certain point, it was nauseating, but she always said, put a pleasant smile on your face. In the middle of whatever the asana was, she was like, and turn your corners of your mouth up to your ears. And just hearing that, you can't not smile because it's like so corny and so, but
Yeah.
that's why I always have like a beautiful connection to yoga, and you keep that alive in so many people. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. And everybody out there, thank you so much for listening. Definitely go follow David G right there in the description. Appreciate you all. Namaste.
Namaste.